Hi there again. We have a real treat today. We have got upcycling a pair of men's jeans to create a gorgeous pair of dungarees for the little person in your life. So we are going to take something old and make it into something new. Let's get going. So we're going to need to get some measurements before we start. So what we want is to measure down from the waist all the way down to the ankle so that we can see how long we want these dungarees to be. We want to measure the waist and the hips. We can take a little measurement of roughly how far up we want the bib of these little dungarees to go, and we have a little back panel as well that's going to hold our dungaree straps, and we're also going to want to get a rough measurement of how far up we would like that to go as well. If you sit on the chair for me, there's one final measurement we need. We want to get, hold an arm up in the air and sit up nice and straight. Perfect. We want to measure down from the waist to where the bottom sits flat on the chair. So it's just a short measurement, but that'll give us what's called the rise. So we're going to measure down from the waist flat to the chair. And that's all the measurements we need. So you can go now. So with the measurements all written down, we need to think about what else we might need to create these dungarees. We're going to want to find some elastic. Doesn't matter what thickness the elastic is. I've got quite a thick bit here, but it can be a bit thinner than this if that's all you've got. We're going to need some little offcuts of cotton. Doesn't need to be very large. It's just to make a little lining for the bib at the front, the bib at the back, our straps and around our waistline. So some long thin strips of scrapped fabric and a couple of little squares of scrapped fabric. And we're also going to need our jeans. And we want to have a pair of maybe men's jeans, largish jeans, and as you can see, these ones have gone through at the bottom, but we haven't got any holes in the knees, which is quite good because the bottom part of the jeans is what we're going to be using. Have a good look at the jeans because you might want to take some details from them as well. I'm going to take the little label off the back and find somewhere to put that on my dungarees. We're also going to want to cut one of the back pockets off because we can put that on the front of our dungarees as a front pocket. And looking at these jeans, there's actually a cute little pocket, a coin pocket inside the front pocket here. So I might take that off and maybe use it as a back pocket. So have a good look at what you've got. Look at the details you have and see if there's a place that you can reuse them to add more details to your dungarees. We're going to start by cutting the leg just below the back pocket, and we're just going to cut straight across through all the layers to take the legs off. So I now have the pair of jeans with the two legs cut off, and I have taken some little pocket details. I've cut out the back pocket, the little front pocket, and I've also taken the badge off the back because we might want to reuse that later. The inside leg seam of these jeans actually has some nice decorative yellow stitching, which I'm going to want to make the outside leg of my dungarees. So I'm not going to cut through this seam, but I'm going to take the outside leg seam and I'm going to cut all the way along so that I can open out that leg. To mark out the pattern for your dungaree legs on your jeans, first you need to decide just how long you want them to be. Do you want them to be all the way down to the ankle? Do you want them to be dungaree shorts? The length of the legs of your original jeans is going to dictate that a little bit, because if you haven't got quite enough fabric to go all the way down to the ankle, you can just make your dungaree shorts shorter so that you can fit what you need. As I mentioned earlier, we need about 20-25 centimetres at the top of each leg for the bib. So what you can do is measure down the top of the leg and then see what you have left to make the rest out of. So I'm going to start by measuring down 25 centimetres from the top of my jeans leg. I want to mark that with some chalk, and I'm just going to draw a line straight across at that point. The upper part here is going to be what we use for the front bib, and on the other leg it'll be what we use for the back bib and the straps for our dungarees. Down from this line we then want to make another line that is that rise measurement we took earlier. So we want to mark straight across where that rise is as well. So for my little girl, it was 18 centimetres down from the top. We now want to take the hip measurement, and we're basically going to create a rectangle. So this top line here, we're going to measure out so that we have our hip measurement marked, and then draw a line straight down to the bottom there. So my little girl's hip measurement was 62. Now half of that, because we're just creating one leg at a time, that will be 31. So what I want to do is make sure we've got some ease and some seam allowances. So I'm going to add 7 centimetres to that. So we now have 37. Roughly centering the measurement on the seam of the jeans, you'll have a little bit more to one side than the other. So just shift that a little bit so that you know that you can get it right in the middle and you've got a little bit of room to either side. So I need to mark 37. So there's 30, there's 37. So I'm going out to here and out to here. And then I'm going to literally drop a line straight down to the ankle. Or if you're making them a little shorter, to the knee. I'm then going to drop another line straight down on this side. And then at this rise level, what I want to do is add 3 centimetres, and I've just got enough on this to either side. So there's 3 centimetres, and I'm going to draw a little curve back in, just in that lower quarter there. I'm going to do exactly the same on this side, 3 centimetres, and then draw back in, just a little curve back into the line. What I can then do is I'll rejoin down to the ankle, that slightly different angle there. So I'll draw that one back up to there. Oops. And draw that one back up to there. So that's our leg sorted out. We're going to get another one of those from the other jeans leg we cut off. If we cut this one out, we can then use it as a template for the other one. So they'll be exactly the same. To create the bib up at the top here, I'm going to add a small seam allowance to the top of my leg. So I'll add 1 centimetre up here, and we can use 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way through our jeans. And then the rest of this is going to become our bib. And the easiest way to decide on the size of your bib is to actually take the pocket that you're intending to use for the front and then cut your bib to be down at the bottom here, the same width as your half hip measurement, and then curve it back in to go alongside your pocket with a little bit of leeway because we need some seam allowance. Cut this side, and we're going to go straight across the top here as well, again with a little bit of seam allowance. And then fold it in half to get that same curve over on the other side. So I shall cut those out now. For the other leg, I have cut my 25 centimetres from the top. I'm then going to take the leg shape I cut from the other leg and I'm going to lay it on top so I can use this one to cut round to create the other leg. The top section is going to be what our bib and straps are going to be made out of. So the back bib is slightly smaller than the front bib, doesn't need to be as large, same length, so 25 centimetres, but what we're also going to do is just make it 11 centimetres wide. So mark 11 centimetres over on this side and then drop a line straight down to about halfway. And then towards the bottom again, I'm just going to curve it out ever so slightly, and I'm just using the room I have on this side of the leg. I'll fold it in half in a minute to make sure it's symmetrical. So I've created a nice little shaped piece for the back bib. What I also want to do is just by a centimetre, drop down each side and then finding the centre, I'm going to draw a little line back up again. So we have a little angle on that back bib. Okay, and that's actually where our two little straps are going to sit. Over on the other side, we now have the rest of this side of the leg to create our straps. And we're going to cut them crossways just so that we have as long a straps as possible to be able to fit. Now we want these straps to be 5 centimetres wide. So I'll start by drawing a line. I'll measure across 5 centimetres, draw another line, and then measure across 5 centimetres again, and draw another line. Now, depending on how long you need these straps to be, you could take an extra bit as well, so that if you do need to join them to make them a little bit longer, you can extend them just a little bit, but we can check that later on. So I'm going to cut these pieces out as well, and then we'll have everything we need for our dungarees. Okay, so that's all our cutting out done. We have our two legs, we have our bib panels, and what I've also done is cut out some matching shapes in our cotton fabric that we had earlier. We have our strap pieces. So we've got 3 little strap pieces that we might have to join together, but we've made the very most of these jeans. We've taken things from everywhere. And then what I've also done is I've cut strips the same size, just a little bit longer, to be the lining for our straps as well, and that's from our cotton too. The pieces of cotton fabric that you cut for the waistband, you're going to want to make those 3 centimetres wider than the elastic you have. Just a little more than the length of the top of your dungaree legs. So you want them to be about 3 to 5 centimetres bigger. We will be folding them away so they can be adjusted later, but as long as they're longer at the moment, we'll work that out when we get to it. And then finally, what we've got are the pocket, the back pocket of the jeans, the little pocket that I took from the front pocket of the jeans, and the little label that I salvaged as well. So now that we have everything cut out, we can move on to construction. The first thing to do is to create our straps. Now what I've already done is I've joined the 3 pieces of denim we had into one long length and then cut that in half to create 2 equal length straps. I've then matched them with a piece of cotton the same size, and I'm just going to sew round the long edges of those and across one of the ends so that we can turn them through and give them a great press to become the straps of our little dungarees. So I shall do that now. Once those are sewn, you're going to clip the ends of just the corners of your straps. Just take them across diagonally, which will help us get a nice neat edge when we turn them through. Any longer seam allowances can be trimmed down as well. Now, if it helps to use a strap turner, then you can, or a rouleau turner. The other alternative, if you don't have one of those, is to use a pen, and you can push the pen into the top and then roll the fabric down over the pen all the way down until the whole strap is turned through. What I'm also going to do is sew all the way round our bib panel. So I have again a matching piece of fabric in cotton, and I'm going to sew round the edges of the bib panel, leaving the bottom open, but the top edges and round those curves, I'm going to sew that as well. So having sewn round the edges of your bib, you're going to want to clip the corners so that you can turn them through, and the curve that we have, we're also going to want to cut just little slits all the way around that curve, so when we turn it through, it can be laying nice and flat. We're then going to turn the bib through. Once you've pressed your two straps and your front bib, pop them back under the machine and do a lovely line of top stitching just close to the edge, not more than about 1/2 centimetre away, all the way down the long edge across the top and back up again on the straps, and all the way round the curve and the top section of your bib. Once your top stitching is in place, take your pocket and pop it right in the centre of your bib. You should just have enough room to pop that pocket in because we matched it up when we were measuring up earlier. Pop a couple of pins in to hold it securely in place, and you're going to go round it again just to top stitch it to hold it onto the front of this little bib. So it's going to go back under the machine and have a little bit of a stitch into place. So the pocket for the front of our little dungarees is now firmly in place, and what we want to do now is create the back panel that our straps are going to pop into. You place the cotton and the back panel right sides together, a couple of pins to hold that in place. What you then want to do is put your straps inside between the two layers of fabric, pinning all the way round. At this point, before you do that final sew across them, because we're going to sew up and round as well, you can check your straps against your little one just to check they're going to be long enough. If anything, make them a little bit longer, and we can put more than one, maybe 2 or 3 buttonholes onto them, so that with time you can extend the straps as your little person gets bigger. Makes the garment last a little bit longer. Once you've stitched all the way around your little back panel, take out your pins and just use your straps to pull the whole thing through. You're going to want to give this a really, really good press once it's through. And this is also going to be top stitched all the way round. Now I've also got from earlier my little patch that I took from the original jeans. And what I think I might do is I'll also, while I'm top stitching, I'll pop it in the centre back there as a little detail. Once you've top stitched all the way round, you are going to have your back panel and your bib front, and your little straps will come down and attach with buttons just on the front like this. So we have the top section and the more detailed section of our dungarees all sorted out now, so we can move on to getting those legs together. We're going to take the two leg pieces and they're going to be stitched together along that curved seam, the one for the front and the one for the back. So those are the two lines of stitching we're going to do first. We're using a 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way through. Now this seam will be on show inside the trousers, so we're going to also want to overcast, which is popping the edge of our fabric right in the very centre of our presser foot, choosing a zigzag stitch and then running a zigzag stitch down the edge of the fabric to make sure it stays neat and tidy and doesn't fray. Now that I've got one of those seams in place, I'm going to open the little jeans out, and the little pocket that I trimmed off earlier from inside the front pocket, I'm going to attach that one onto the back as well. So these little dungarees have a little back pocket. Now I've got to remember I've got a waistband up at the top, so I mustn't go too close to the top, but I think I'll just pin it a little bit further down. And this one, I left a little bit of fabric all the way around, and I'm simply going to attach it with a zigzag. The little rivets at the top would have made it difficult to stitch it on in the way I did the front pocket, so I'm just going to zigzag round. So a couple of pins go in to hold it, and then I shall stitch round. Once your front and back seams are sewn, you want to turn the jeans so that you can match that inside leg seam, matching in between the legs and down to the hem on either side. Pop some pins in place all the way up one leg, match the centre and then down the other side. And you're going to want to sew the whole of that inside leg seam right the way from one hem all the way over to the other. Having sewn that inside leg seam, what we now want to do is turn our jeans through, give those inside legs a lovely press before we move on, so they're out as flat as they can be. There we go. And we're then going to take the back panel of our little jeans. With the jeans right sides facing outwards, we're then going to pop that little back panel right in the centre at the back. So that's where that's going to be attached. We then take the waistband that we cut earlier, and we cut it a little bit longer than we needed. And what I've done is I've trimmed it down to be about 1 centimetre longer than the width of our little jeans from side seam to side seam. So it's about 1 centimetre more than we need, and we're going to attach that one first so we can get our elastic into place before we start to look at the front. With the little back panel sandwiched in between the two, I'm going to pop some pins to hold it securely into place, and then I'm going to sew along that top edge all the way from one side seam to the other to attach that little waistband onto the back of the jeans. So I'm going to pop that underneath the sewing machine now. Once that's sewn, you're going to turn your jeans inside out again, and the waistband that you've just attached, you're going to bring it over the top and down into the inside of the jeans. Now it's going to need a nice press to get it to sit nice and flat across this section. So get the iron onto those and give it a nice press. Once it's had a nice press, we're going to move our attention to the bottom edge of that waistband, and we're just going to offer up our elastic so that we can see we've got enough room to run that elastic through this little channel that we're creating, and we're just going to tuck the bottom up and pin that down as well, just through the back of the jeans. Once that's pinned into place, it's probably going to be easiest to sew this with the box off your sewing machine, and it's then going to pop back underneath, and you're sewing the bottom edge of that waistband. Once that's sewn, you're going to want to take your elastic, pop a large pin onto the end of it, and thread your elastic through the channel you've just made. So the elastic is going to go around the back of our little dungarees so that they can fit nicely around the waist. I'm going to thread the elastic through, and once it's all the way through, I'll take the pin away, and just on one end I'm going to use some straight stitches backwards and forwards, a few rows, to attach one end of the elastic securely. I'll pop the box back on my machine and I'll just attach that one end of the elastic. So one end of our elastic is secured, and the other end we can now pull down so we have a little wrinkle running round the back of our dungarees. Now it doesn't need to be too gathered. You want your little person to be able to get in and out of them quite easily. So we're just going to pull it down so we've got a little bit of gathering across the back, definitely not smaller than the waist measurement we made earlier. We can pop a pin through and cut away the excess elastic, and then we're just going to sew that into place as well, just like we did the other one. So some straight stitches running all the way across the elastic through all the layers, and reverse going back again for some added strength there. Once that's done, we then turn our jeans through again, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for our back panel to attach our front panel. So our front bib goes face down onto the centre front, and then I'm going to bring the remaining waistband piece down on top of it, and I'm leaving extra to either side. So this piece we cut longer than we needed, and we're going to leave that extra fabric there. I'm just going to replace those pins so they're going through all three layers, and I'm going to sew again from side seam to side seam. The extra bits of fabric we're leaving either side are then going to fold back and cover the raw edges of our elastic. So I'll just get this little bit sewn on, and then I'll show you how we're finishing those other pieces. Once that's sewn, you're going to push the waistband lining and the bib upwards. Give that a lovely press once it's flipped up, And then we're going to turn these inside out so we can secure down the front of that waistband nice and neat. So I've turned them the right sides out, and now the bottom edge of the waistband at the front here can be turned up, pinned round, and at either side, where I mentioned earlier, we have a longer bit of waistband, and what we're going to do is simply turn that in to tuck away the raw edges and cover where our raw edges of our elastic was. So we'll tuck those in and pin them down on top of the raw edges where our elastic was. We can then stitch down and all the way round and up the other side, and that'll cover up the ends of our elastic and add a little bit of extra strength to them as well. So once you have sewn your front waistband nicely into place, that's your dungarees almost finished. It just remains to turn through your dungarees, and what we need now is buttonholes on our straps. So we're going to bring them up and over, give a little double check where we'd like our little straps to sit, and then we're going to take them under the machine and give them some buttonholes. Now the buttons I've chosen are lovely little wooden buttons. I think they'll look quite cute with this. I'm going to pop them into the back of my button foot. I'm going to pop my button foot on, and then I'll get these buttonholes sewn. Now I have, at the same time as uploading this video, I've uploaded another little video that tells you all about how to do buttonholes, whether you have a one-step machine or whether you have a four-step machine. So at this point, if you need to double check how to create buttonholes on your sewing machine, you can just pop into the other videos on this channel and you'll be able to find one on buttonholes that'll take you through step by step. So I'm going to pop those buttonholes on now. Okay, so we have buttonholes in place on our little dungarees. It just remains to sew the buttons on, and then they'll be ready to wear. So I really hope you've enjoyed this little make. You can see the joy it brings behind me. We've got a happy little dancer in her dungarees. I hope you have a go at home. If you need any help or advice, just comment below and I'll be more than happy to help. Enjoy the little make. Goodbye.